Hi everyone, my name is Caitlin and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if it's your first time here. I want to welcome you back to another Bookmas video as part of the 12 Days of Bookmas that I am doing this year, and I am so glad you're here. Today I am doing a little bit of a different kind of video for me that I don't think I've ever done anything like this. Quite honestly, I don't usually talk about personal things on social media at all. I'm a pretty private person and I usually kind of keep it to myself. But in the past year I've kind of gone through and recently in the last couple of months I've gone through some experiences, and I wanted to share them with you all in the hopes that maybe God could use it to encourage someone who may be going through possibly the same thing or something similar, or maybe even not something similar, but just a struggle that maybe it could be encouraging to them in some way. And also kind of to document it for myself so that I can go back later on and be able to look back at this documented version of everything that I can see now that God did in my situation and his faithfulness. And yeah, so I guess I'll just jump right into it. So I've always been pretty healthy. I never had any health challenges or anything growing up. And then in 2011, when I was about 20 years old, 19, 20 years old, I all of a sudden one day out of nowhere had a very severe pain right here in my chest. And I woke up with it, and it was really bad, and I have a very high pain tolerance, so it was a lot. And I ended up, after a while, throwing up, and after I threw up, it went away. I felt completely normal again. Now this continued periodically. It was not a constant thing by any means. It was just an occasional happening. It definitely seemed to be connected to, in a way, what I was eating, because it always seemed to happen after I had eaten, or either shortly after or a few hours after. So it definitely seemed to be connected to digestion in some form. But I never went to the doctor or anything for it. So like I said, it would go months, sometimes a couple of years even, without having any symptoms or without having this happen. There also were occasionally varying degrees of how bad it was, how long it lasted. There were a couple of times that it was really bad and lasted for probably about 12 hours. And then last summer, so summer of 2023, I was having a lot of struggles with it. Throughout the summer, I was having it happen a lot more than it had been, and it was just kind of getting to be an increasingly constant thing. I wasn't necessarily throwing up every time, but it was always a fear of mine that I would be a bad attack, I guess you could say, of it. So I believe it was September 7th of 2023, I ended up having a very, very bad time with it where I got sick. It was incredibly, incredibly painful. I got sick. Getting sick, throwing up did not relieve the pain like it normally did when that happened. The pain continued on at the same intensity level all night long. So that morning I went to the emergency room, and craziness, by the time I get to the emergency room, the pain had actually stopped. And yeah, it's crazy. But so I was there anyway. So the time I got there in the morning, about 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, I was not in any more pain. The pain had stopped completely, and I did not get sick again. Well, around 11 o'clock, they came in and told me that some of the numbers of my blood work for my liver function were off the charts, and pointing to pancreatitis caused by a gallstone blocking the entrance to my pancreas, and told me that if that were the case, I would need to go to another hospital about an hour away for a procedure to remove that stone. Because it wasn't something that they did at this hospital. So that freaked me out a lot. So this is, okay, so this is going to be like kind of a roundabout story, but this is kind of where like I started to see God's hand working in all of this. So I ended up having a wonderful nurse while I was in the emergency room, and she comes in and she says, because they had sent me, they told me that I would need to have an MRI to confirm whether there was a stone blocking my pancreas or not. So this amazing nurse that I was blessed with comes in and she says, okay, here's paperwork for you to fill out. Now, if you fill this out within the next, 10 or 15 minutes, I can get you in for an MRI in, I think it was like 20 minutes or a half an hour from now. And she's like, this never happens. And I was like, I could see God in that. I totally could. Okay, now I have to back up just a little bit in the story to an earlier part in which I could see God working through this whole scenario. I was at the time working on a fictional story about it's a romantic suspense, and the hero is a paramedic. And it just so happened when I got to the emergency room, the person who ended up putting in my IV happened to be a young man who was a paramedic in training. His name was Ezra, and he was very kind and wonderful, but he looked exactly like I pictured this character looking in my brain. Like, I am not kidding you. He looked exactly like him. Okay? So, I'll just say that. That was super cool. I was like, thank you, Lord. This is awesome. I'm blown away by your attention to detail. But, okay, so fast forward, I got in for the MRI. The results came back showing that there was not, praise the Lord, there was not a stone blocking my pancreas at that point in time, though there were signs that there had been one there. However, what the MRI also revealed that I had no idea about was, well, initially they thought that my bladder was hugely enlarged, but it turned out to be a 17 centimeter cyst on my right ovary. So this, of course, was completely freaked me out, more so than my gallbladder issues, because I was like, that's whatever, I'll work with it. But that thoroughly and completely freaked me out, big time. So I ended up having to stay the night. I still was not having any pain, hadn't thrown up again, so I was feeling fine at this point. So I had to stay the night. Again, ended up with another really great nurse in the room that I was in upstairs. So yeah, I didn't get a lot of sleep that night. Now here's another way that God obviously has a sense of humor, and yeah, it just blows me away. I never ended up seeing an actual doctor until the next morning. I only saw nurses and PAs and ultrasound techs and, everything, but not an actual doctor until the next morning. And the doctor who comes in starts talking, and I talked in a previous video about how I have Irish heritage and I love all things, anything related to Ireland. I just love it so much. Well, I also very much love accents and listening to people's accents and trying to determine where they're from. It brings me joy and I love it. So he comes in, he explains to me what all went on, and when he's getting ready to leave, I said, could I ask you a personal question real quick? And he said, yeah, sure, go ahead. I said, can I ask about your accent, where you're from? And he says, yes, it's Irish. And so, yeah, it was great. We had a wonderful chat and got to tell him about how I have ancestors from Ireland. He remarked on my name being the Gaelic form of Kathleen. I said, yes, that's right. And it was very cool. And it was very much, I could very much feel God smiling in that moment, because it was very much very much felt like he was saying, this is the doctor I'm going to send to you because I know that you will appreciate it and I know this will make you smile. And it just, I don't know how else to say it other than that. Okay, so anyway, fast forward a little bit. I found out that I would need to have gallbladder surgery as well as surgery to remove the cyst. I was told when I went to see a gynecologist who specialized in cysts and things of that nature, I told her that I was very worried about it, and she said that she was not worried about it based on the ultrasound results and the type of cyst it looked to be. That obviously she couldn't say for sure, but she did not believe that it was anything serious, but that it would need to be surgically removed because it wasn't something that was going to go away on its own, especially being as big as it was. Okay, so fast forward, life stuff happened. Life got crazy. Things happened that I'm not going to go into, but it was just, life was up in the air for months, and then it got into winter and was a scenario where I was not going to be able to be laid up for a couple of weeks without being able to lift anything. That just wasn't going to work, being in the winter with having to shovel snow and everything involved with winter. So my surgery ended up getting put off. And then this spring, I called and started the process. And of course, that started the fear in my heart, in my head, started all over again. Mostly worrying about the cyst more than anything, because I had been eating a very low-fat diet for the year and I had not had any issues all winter and spring. I had not had any issues with my gallbladder at all. I'd been eating a much lower fat diet, and so had not had any issues. So they finally ended up getting me scheduled for surgery, which was September 16th of this year, 2024. And I was struggling a lot emotionally. It was huge for me because I had never had surgery before in my life. It was, and I am very much a worrywart anyway about things. And so it was very challenging, very emotional, and I was pretty much a basket case leading up to it. So I go in for surgery, and I don't even remember falling asleep. I just remember the oxygen mask on my face and taking deep breaths. I don't even remember getting sleepy. And then I woke up in the recovery room, and the nurses were drawing blood, and I couldn't understand what was going on. I had oxygen tubes on and everything, and I was obviously very foggy, did not understand what was going on at all. And they told me that I would have, now this was supposed to be, okay, this is something I should include here. They told me both surgeries, so they did both surgeries at once. I forgot to say that. They were able to coordinate it to do both surgeries at the same time, which was great. They were doing it laparoscopically, so it was going to be very small incisions. The doctor who did my gallbladder surgery said that there was a chance that he may have had to make a larger incision in order to remove my gallbladder safely, but he didn't think that that would be likely. So, okay, it was all good, and I was supposed to be able to go home the same day. Well, when I woke up after the surgery, the first thing that I remember the nurses telling me was, "You're going to have to stay." And I was just so out of it and dazed that I was like, I just kept saying, why? I don't understand why. And I felt like no one would tell me why. It was weird, because I was like, they were saying, well, nothing went wrong, but it took longer than they thought, is what everybody kept telling me. So I was out of it, and so my mom was there with me. She had to leave and come home, of course, and so I was there for the night. So now another part of this story is I was very worried. One of my worries leading up to the surgery was pain level. Now, as I said before, I have a very high pain tolerance, But personally, I don't like taking any kind of medication. I don't like taking pills for anything, like any kind of aches and pains. Like, I don't usually take anything for menstrual cramps. I don't usually take anything for like a slight headache or anything. I usually just don't. So I was very concerned about how much pain I was going to be in and if I would need to take narcotics, because I really did not want to, because I know people who have dependencies on narcotics, and I had seen scenarios where family members were in severe pain, and narcotics actually didn't help. They actually ended up making it worse. And I did not want to go down that route. So I ended up telling everybody I don't. I had prepared, I had told my doctor ahead of time, and I had ibuprofen and Tylenol at home. And she said that she thought if I took them together every 6 hours around the clock, that I would be good. And so I was like, okay, but I didn't, there was still, still questioning in my brain. So I was like, okay, whatever. So I really didn't know what it was going to be like. So I told them there, I said, I really do not want to take narcotics after the surgery. So I said, okay. So I ended up just having Tylenol, and it was, okay, let me put it this way. The pain level was way, way less than I was expecting. It was so much better than I was anticipating. Yeah, it was not, for me, it was not a problem at all with just Tylenol, and that's all I ended up taking, and I had no problem with that. So one thing I will say in regard to that is, if you are facing any kind of surgery or anything, my advice to you would be to not do what I did, which is look up videos on YouTube of the experiences of people who have had that surgery, because it will scare you to death, because that's what happened to me, and it will not be helpful, and it more than likely is not necessarily going to be accurate to the experience you will even have. So I'll just say that, because I very much wish that I had not done that, because it caused me hours and days of undue worry. Okay, fast forward to post-surgery. Okay, so I'm there. So I find out kind of in bits and pieces that the surgery ultimately went well, that my gallbladder was in a lot worse shape than they were anticipating. And when they had difficulty removing it, because it had kind of like adhered itself to my liver. So they had a little bit of difficulty removing it. My doctor said that he thought for a few minutes about making a larger incision, but he decided not to. Ultimately, he was able to do it without that. And I said, well, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate that. So yeah, so there's that. I guess when they were removing it, it sort of came apart a little bit. So, and some of the stones spilled out, so they had to clean those out. So that's part of what took longer. And yeah, as a result of all of that, because there was a little bit of bleeding, not a severe amount of blood loss, but a little bit of bleeding, I ended up having a drain from that wound when I woke up. So yeah, so I thought originally I was only going to be in the hospital for about a day. I ended up being in the hospital from Monday afternoon. My surgery was about 1 o'clock on Monday, the 16th of September, 2024. I ended up being there because of some stomach issues, and I did not get sick. I did not get sick from the anesthesia, but after a while, my digestive system was just really not happy with the abdominal surgeries that I had just had. So it took a while for things to get back to normal, and it was making me sick for a couple of days. So it took a few days for me to start to get back to normal and be eating normally, and was able to come home. So I was able to come home on the Friday of that week, the Friday afternoon of that week. But yeah, I just totally saw God's hand in the fact that even though I had not had any gallbladder attacks in that time. It was obviously the perfect timing. It was like just in the right time, because obviously if my gallbladder was in that bad a shape, something would have happened that probably would have required emergency surgery. So I am very thankful to God that he worked it out to happen in the timing that it did. I'm very grateful that I was able to get through and not really be in very much pain at all with only Tylenol. I'm very, very thankful for that. I realize that will not probably be everyone's experience, and that is totally fine. One thing I will say that was probably part of the hardest thing for me that I still am dealing with all this was beforehand, my gynecologist had told me that she would try her best to be able to just only remove the cyst from my right ovary and not have to remove the ovary itself. That she was going to try her best, but she couldn't guarantee whether she would be able to do that or not. So I knew that losing my ovary was a possibility, and that ended up being the case. The cyst was benign, thankfully. Thank you, Jesus. Which means it was not cancerous, if you don't know what that means. But she did have to remove my ovary because of the way the cyst had grown. It had basically encased the ovary in it. So it was not possible. The ovary was fine, but it was not possible to like disconnect the two from each other. So she had to remove the ovary, and that has been, if I'm being honest, it's been kind of taking a bit of an emotional toll on me since then. Because I'm 33 years old. I'm single. I do not have any kids at this point in time. I've never been married. And yeah, it's definitely a bit of an emotional toll. And I know she told me that if I in the future wanted to try to get pregnant, that I shouldn't have any issues because the other ovary should take over, but that it might take longer in that case. And if I'm being honest, that's kind of taken an emotional toll on me, because it kind of like brings up the like ticking clock that I feel like there is, if I did, for me to be able to get married and have children. And I'm already 33. It feels like the clock is ticking, and I don't, I've never been in a relationship. And there's not anyone that I know. There are no men that I know that I would be interested in dating or potentially marrying. So I'm kind of a little bit at a loss as to what to do in that regard. Yeah, and I don't really know, like, I'm not really going anywhere with that. It's just, I'm just kind of sharing all my thoughts and feelings here, I guess. But yeah, so, yeah, I think that's everything. I don't think I forgot anything, but I just kind of wanted to, oh, there's one thing that I forgot. So I came home with the drain from my gallbladder incision. So I had to go back about 5 days. 5 days after I came home, I had to go back to my gallbladder surgeon to have that removed, which was an interesting experience. But yeah, it didn't hurt, but it was definitely a bit uncomfortable to have that removed. But anyway, I already knew, because when I was in the hospital, I saw him. He came to see me the day after my surgery in my hospital room. And then the 3 days after that, I did not see him. They told me that he wasn't feeling well, that he was under the weather, and I did not see him again while I was at the hospital. So I didn't see him again until 5 days after I left the hospital, when I went over for my appointment to have the drain removed. And I learned at that point in time that he had COVID, and apparently had been starting to show signs of it on Monday, even when he did the surgery. And then I saw him without a mask on, and he was right next to me, you know, at my bedside in my hospital room the next day. But yet, somehow, the Lord kept me from getting sick, because that would have been insane to have been added to the other challenges that I was dealing with at the time. That would have been insane. So that was just another incredible way that God blessed me, and that I didn't know. Obviously, I didn't even know that he was protecting me in that way until after the fact. But I really want this to hopefully be an encouragement to anyone that is struggling with something, whether you're struggling with the same things that I went through or not. I hope that God will use this to encourage you, and yeah, feel free to reach out if there's any way that I can be an encouragement to you, or that I can, if you need a listening ear, or if there's anything that I can do to help you in any way with whatever you may be struggling with. Feel free to leave a comment, or you can private message me on Instagram. My handle is the same as it is here on YouTube, Chronicles of a Book Nerd. So yeah, I just wanted to put this out here. I know it's a very different kind of video, but I hope that you enjoyed it. Yeah, it's definitely a different thing for me, so I hope it wasn't too weird. Yeah, trying to be authentic and share the things that I usually keep a little bit more private, because I do believe that God, like it says in the Bible, God comforts us in our times of trial so that we can turn around and use the comfort he has given us to comfort others. I'm probably paraphrasing that, but that's the general gist of the verse. So that's what I hope he will do with this. Yeah, so thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. And yeah, let's chat in the comments or in direct messages. And thanks so much for watching. I love you guys so much. And yeah, I'll see you in my next video. Bye.